Hi, everybody. I'm your host, Rebecca Durance Hine, and I'm the founder of Orenda Cancer Community and blog, which is an online community and blog that supports cancer patients past and present, their caregivers, and anyone who is serious about prevention. Today, my guest is Sarah McLean. She is a contemporary meditation and mindfulness teacher dedicated to helping people wake up to the beauty and wonder of their lives through the power of meditation and mindfulness practices. She served as the program director for Deepak Chopra's Mind Body Health Center in California and studied with him while being responsible for delivering education programs to staff and guests. She later founded the McLean Meditation Institute and is now the director of the Meditation Teacher Academy, which offers training for meditation and mindfulness teachers worldwide. She is also the best-selling author of the Hay House book, Soul Centered, Transform Your Life in 8 Weeks with Meditation, as well as The Power of Attention, Awaken to Love and Its Unlimited Potential with Meditation. Welcome, and thank you so much for being here, Sarah.
Thanks for having me. This is so fun to be here with you, even though we're talking about a heavy subject of cancer.
Absolutely. So to begin with, how did you come to do the work that you do?
Gosh, I think I've definitely traveled the road less traveled, because when I was really young, I was always questing after the mysteries of life. You know, I read lots of mystery stories. I got way back before probably anyone was born listening to this podcast. I got those books from Time Life, The Mysteries of the World, like looking at the pyramids and psychic abilities. And, you know, I'm really into the mysteries. And, you know, what's more mysterious than who we are, why we're here, what this life is about, what this world is about, and the workings of the mind and consciousness. So it was kind of a natural evolution, not necessarily a smooth one, but a natural evolution of being curious about mysteries of themselves, and then being curious about what was looking through my eyes, and who is God, and what is this universe. I think philosophers, artists, scientists, we all have this desire to know, and that's what prompted me. I was in the Army as a young woman, 18, and I won't go too much into that, except for I had one of my first meditation experiences while I was in the Army. I was a behavioral specialist training to work with soldiers who are really suffering the chronic effects of PTSD. Even though their PTSD might have been acute, some of them did not recover and they ended up in, unfortunately, psychiatric wards or on medication for the rest of their lives. And I was being trained by a lieutenant who was a male nurse, and he said, let's try something. Now, I had been studying the effects of stress on the nervous system, obviously looking at what it does to a human's ability to function, sleep, eat, digest, have good relationships, and get rid of anxiety and depression, taking a look at the effects. And he had me lying down on a lawn. We were outside of a psychiatric hospital where we were doing some of our training, and he guided us into a body awareness practice. I was about 18 at the time. I was probably 19 at that time. I was extremely stressed out. I didn't know it. And here I am trying to help others, right? Isn't that what we do? Teach what we need to learn. And he guided me through a body awareness practice, and the contrast between being stressed as my normal way of being and being relaxed for that 2 minutes or 5 minutes or whatever it was so potent that I never forgot it. Fast forward, I went to college. I ended up traveling around the world on my bicycle, searching for these secrets once again of who am I, why are we here, what is this world, how are we related to everything else, and got back and had those questions. What's next? Why am I here? At that point, I was 25. I had a huge house in Adams Morgan, which is outside of DuPont Circle in Washington, D.C. I had money in the bank from my successful job. I was a real estate agent. I had already graduated from college, been around the world, been in the Army. I'd been married and divorced, which will leave that story out. And I kept going, what is next? And it's really good to ask that question of yourself. What is next? What is this? And what happened was I started to awaken to this body of knowledge called Ayurveda. which some of you know now as being the ancient science of healing on life and longevity from India. And Deepak Chopra was one of the promoters of it initially, and I had never heard of him, but started to get involved working with him and training in Ayurveda. Now he said healing, consciousness is primary when it comes to healing. And I had no idea what that meant. And we can talk about that further in a little bit. But I got really involved in meditation, trying to align my rhythms with the rhythms of nature, eating various tastes to stimulate various doshas in the body, which are governing systems. And so it was really a whole life change from real estate at 26 to moving into an Ayurveda center, living off of a couple $100 a month and loving it.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So just to jump right into it, how do you feel our mental and emotional states affect our physical healing, our ability to heal?
Gosh, well, it's definitely correlated, obviously. I do think we need to address before our ability to heal. Let's talk about why we even get sick.
Sure.
And I think this is particularly important because when I went to work for Deepak Chopra, who no one knew at the time, just a handful of people knew him because he hadn't been on Oprah yet. He wasn't famous yet. People weren't talking about him. But what he used to do, I used to answer the phone with people seeking sort of a last-ditch effort to try and get well from cancer or Parkinson's or ALS or depression. And they would call and say, can you help me? Because his book, Quantum Healing, was just coming out. His book, Perfect Health, was just coming out. And those were the books that I was attracted to. And they would call the number in the back of the book, they'd get me. And what I learned was, stress plays a very big part. Back to, the military, the stress of not asking for what you not want, not saying what you mean, not living a life that's nourishing to you, not finding ways to naturally alleviate the stress. The stress can exacerbate a condition. Now, these days, they're even saying 4% of all conditions are treatable and curable, that they're the only 4%, it could even be fewer than that, but 4% are genetic and they're, it's almost like written in stone that you're going to get it, but the 96% are not. So how do we turn on and off these genes that create health or create disease? So to boil it down very simply, I didn't understand the value of meditation. I was really attracted to the healing aspect, but what I started to learn was stress can turn on disease, right? It can exacerbate it. It can create it in some cases. So there's stress. And then there's the stress that the disease itself causes. For instance, I was diagnosed with thyroid cancer, which is a pretty good cancer to get if you have to get one. But I was young. It wasn't as common as it is today for a 30-year-old to get cancer. And for me, it was right here, of course. And for me, I was always withholding what I thought. I didn't tell the truth about how I felt. I didn't speak up because I didn't feel like I had anything valuable to say. I was extremely codependent. And, I would get constant sore throats, constant pain, searing pain in my throat. And, it was really stress was starting to happen. Then I had the nodule that was cancerous, and that created stress because I had trouble swallowing. I had to go in to get some treatment. And so the disease causes stress, and then the treatments of the disease cause stress, right? Even just hearing the C word caused stress for me. I can say that we start looking at the ways in which stress can mask and inhibit the body's natural communication and healing that is inherent in everybody's body. I mean, you cut your finger, it heals. You have cancer cells in your body all the time. They don't take root. Right? They move on because we have enough free radical scavengers that will take care of it and enough intelligence in the body that overrides it. But what happens when we're, stressed out? I was extremely stressed out from my childhood and from a horrible marriage that I had, and just by not valuing myself. So that all led to this. And at the time when I had cancer, and it was embarrassing to have cancer working for this mind body doctor. So it wasn't for a couple of years that I knew that I had it. But what was interesting was I wanted a secret mantra. I wanted a secret healing technique. I wanted the secrets that Deepak Chopra, an endocrinologist, could give me, a woman who had thyroid cancer, in the endocrine system, a gland. So what could he do to make it magically go away? And what he said was very interesting. I'll tell you in a moment, but I want to see if you had any questions about what I was just talking about.
Yeah, I mean, I know that leading up to my diagnosis, I had an extremely stressful few years, and I did have a lot of stress in my childhood as well. I lost my father, so what you're saying really rings true. And what you're saying about the location of the cancer, I know some people feel like that's I don't know, phooey or whatever, right? But I had a lot of emotions that I've been suppressing for a long time, and where it showed up for me was on the left side, right over my heart. So I feel like it's very appropriate what you're saying about where it shows up, and and the stress it builds for sure.
So here's the thing, the body doesn't lie.
No.
The body doesn't lie. When you're feeling that heartache, or when I was feeling, it literally felt like someone was going like this to my throat. The body's telling us something before it gets exacerbated and turns into disease. And so we're so busy and distracted as a culture, as a community, and just being so busy being human doings rather than human beings, we tend to go, I'll just ignore that, it's going to be fine.
It'll be fine.
And sometimes it is fine. But sometimes it's not fine. And I always love to say to people, why don't we wake up before the wake-up call? But sometimes that's what this is, the wake-up call, so we can sort of write our course to navigate the world in a more nourishing way, in right relationship with ourselves, with the world, with the body, with others, with our jobs. So I, thinking I'm very lucky getting cancer, I go to Deepak and get to walk right into his room, which is rare for people, I think. And I said, what can you do to help me? And so I said, I need a mantra. I wanted to do everything, a healing. At the time, the thought was all about, if you have cancer, and I hate to say this, it was kind of the awkward introduction to the mind-body connection in the early 90s, late 80s, where they used to say, look, you got cancer, it's your fault. So, as a young girl, I was really putting a lot of pressure on myself to take care of myself naturally, because here I am in an Ayurveda center. I was beating myself up for getting it, thinking there's something inherently wrong with me. And so I wanted to kind of go the natural route. And what he said to me was, your body is dense compared to your mind, your emotions, compared to your spirit. The body is more dense, and based on the way of creation, it's more dense physically than thoughts, emotions. And he said, you have to address the body too. You can address the emotions, you can address your spirituality, you can keep connecting to that part of you that is untethered by disease, that is perfectly harmonious and peaceful and still and healthy and vibrant and wise. You can connect to that part of yourself often in meditation, because at this point I was meditating every single day. And he goes, but sometimes because of the density of the body, it takes a while for that ship to right itself. The wind can change like this, but a cruise ship takes a little while to turn around, and the body's like the cruise ship. So of course there are spontaneous healings that are out there, and we all want them. The thing about spontaneous healings is they're spontaneous. You can't plan for them. You can't really count on them, even though you can hope for the best. And so you have to really take care of it. And for me, because it was a slower growing cancer, I was able to take a little bit of time to start doing some natural healing, which I was surrounded by at that point, whether it was oils or chakra stones or Reiki or distance Reiki or chanting or meditation or visualization. And I'll tell you a story about the visualization in a moment. But so I went into his office and he goes, I'll give you a mantra, which he did for this area. And he said, you need surgery. Now, that kind of was a blow to me because I didn't want surgery. You know, I didn't talk much about this prior to this, but I've had a number of surgeries for other issues, and I don't want surgery again. So he says, you need to do it. You know, your consciousness may be one place, but your body is not necessarily caught up with that. So I really needed to hear that from him to give myself permission to do the Western approach in addition to sort of the alternative or complementary medicines. And so I did. I got the surgery. I healed very quickly. I mean, I was in the hospital for a day. It was the day before Christmas, and I got out and I was fine. You know, it was like, I know the meditation really set myself up for a quick recovery, a really quick recovery. And it has before that, and it has ever since with other issues I've had. So with him, he just said, do both. And I think it's good advice. Even if you're working in a mind-body center, or even if you think, well, there's other ways I should be doing this, you can give them a try, but really look at the least invasive way to address it.
Yeah.
I mean, I know once somebody gets a diagnosis, and I think we all remember that moment, if you've had cancer or if you've heard about a friend who has it or family member, there's this moment where you're fine. And then there's this moment when you hear your diagnosis. And it's almost as if for me, it was extremely confusing in that moment because I had been on the phone answering all these phones for the Chopra Center. At the time, it was the Maharishi Ayurveda Health Center run by the Transcendental Meditation Organization. And every time someone would call me, I could really meet them where they were, talk to them about their disease, talk about the treatments we were going to do with the center. But if someone said cancer, it almost felt to me like I couldn't go there. I couldn't challenge them. I felt like it was almost, I guess I was misinformed, like it was a death sentence. And what I learned by having cancer now is we have to be brave. We have to move right towards it instead of away from it. You know, our brain is designed, the older part of our brain is designed to move away from struggle, trauma, and danger and pain, but we have to do the opposite. We have to move towards it with love, with non-judgment, with forgiveness, with compassion. And so I learned that in a visualization, which I'll share with you in a little bit. But I think for me, when I got that diagnosis, and I want to hear about what happened for you, I said, well, I feel the same. 1 minute, I'm fine. The next minute I have a diagnosis, but I still feel the same. What am I supposed to do now? What kind of drama do I need to engage in, right? And do I need to engage in it at all?
Yeah, it's so that I've described that moment exactly for other people. It's like I felt totally healthy, totally. I went to my appointment by myself because I was so convinced that it was going to be nothing. And then of course it wasn't nothing. And I remember my jaw literally dropping open because it was just so surprising and so shocking. And it was this weird moment of like, I'm sick, but I don't feel sick. So like, and it was like what you talk about with the drama of it too. It was this, a part of me was very concerned now about how other people were going to view me as like someone who was sick. And I was like, I don't look different. I don't feel different, but there's this like, neon sign almost now over my head being like, cancer patient, something's wrong with you. Yeah, it was a very weird, and as you say, confusing moment.
Yeah, and I think back then, I think it's changed now, but when I was diagnosed, I think it was 1993, people didn't know what to do because I was fairly young, and it wasn't as common as maybe it is now. So I told you I got my surgery. It was 2 days before Christmas. I got out on the 24th of December. Nobody asked me over for Christmas. Nobody spent time with me for Christmas. I was all by myself with my big surgery, my big Band-Aid here. It was Christmas Day. And I really felt, I had a lot of grief. And I think it was for a number of reasons. Obviously, it's really sad to be by myself. My roommates had gone to Hawaii, so they were gone, and my family member didn't really understand the issues. Even today, my mother says, "So you had cancer, right?" I mean, she still doesn't really get it. So, and people don't know how to behave. Like you say, you've got this neon sign going, cancer patient. I really felt like an outcast. And I even had a boyfriend who broke up with me because both of his parents had cancer and he did not want a girlfriend with cancer. Did not. And so, you know, we have to suffer with it. And I think as good friends to people to have cancer or family members, even anyone who's suffering and is in pain, you know, again, that limbic system wants to move away from pain, but we have to use our neocortex, the executive function of the brain, which recognizes and can overrule that amygdala hijack and instead move toward even the scary places in our bodies and in other people's lives, and see is there anything I can do for you? You know, can I just sit with you? Can I get you anything? Because for me, it was just really, I just needed some company. I had gone through this whole thing by myself and sort of was abandoned. And it was Christmas Day, which is a big deal for someone who was brought up Christian. I consider myself Buddhist now, but it's kind of a big holiday in America. And so I feel like just if you're listening to this and you know someone who's suffering with whatever it may be, maybe they've got terminal cancer, maybe they've got ALS, Parkinson's, you know, they are human beings beyond all that. What's looking through their eyes is pure, it's love, it's light, and it's in need of connection, as we all are. So, you know, take that extra step, whether it's when you walk by a homeless person or walk by someone who looks differently able than you. Just, is there anything I can do? Or even acknowledge them with a smile or looking them in the eyes or call them. I really feel that that's important. One of my friends is in Canada, and well, he just passed away last week. And he had inoperable cancer. And he set up his whole death with so much love. You know, he wrote love letters to people. He called people and told them how much they meant to him. You know, I run a meditation school for teachers, and he called me. He was one of my teachers. And he just was so present and so willing to have those difficult conversations with people who obviously don't know what to say. I mean, here's this man who's going to die on Wednesday, you know, and he was so willing to be with the difficulty and so willing to reach out that he really taught so much in his journey. He taught people how to be present and to be kind and to be fearless and to be brave.
That's wonderful. Yeah. And I feel as though even in ourselves too, we shy away from those dark places, and then that's often what causes problems, can cause illness and disease and other things, because as you're saying, you know, you don't say what you want to say, or you push your emotions down, you don't want to go there and you avoid it. But I think it's unavoidable at some point. It's going to come out in some way.
Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I was in the very beginning wanting to do all this alternative medicine, so I ended up doing a visualization that someone told me to do, which was, and it'll sound familiar to you probably, where the cancer cells are on one team and they're you know, they are evil and horrible, and then the other team is your immune system, and they're like the knights in shining armor, and they're fighting. And I would do this visualization before bed where I would imagine this war inside my throat, which, you know, I was hoping it was working, but I noticed I didn't want war inside my body, you know. And I also know that cancer cells are cells that have lost the memory of wholeness. They forget how to die is what happens. They replicate wildly and forget how to die, and that's why they grow. And you know, what happens when people lose the memory of wholeness? What happens with any of us who forget who we are? You know, again, back to moving away or moving toward. What I decided to do in the middle of one of my meditations or visualizations was I decided to love the wayward cancer cells. I decided that I would love everything about myself. I decided I would, and it wasn't easy. I wasn't used to it. It's not like it was just like, let's just do this. I had to play around with it, but I can remember almost instantaneously this feeling. It was sort of like this warm bath of love that just ran through my whole body, which was so visceral and so different than what I was experiencing during that visualization. So, you know, cancer is the enemy. We all know we want to fight cancer. We want to kill cancer. We want to get rid of it, obviously. But listen, you know, we got to love ourselves and our cancer cells anyway. It doesn't mean we want them to hang out, but we want to love every part of ourselves, the good, the bad, the ugly. And we can wish it's different, but it isn't different in that moment.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm sure, you know, meditation and, as you said, visualization was a big part of your healing process. So how exactly does meditation, do you believe, support our physical healing?
So meditation, it can really wipe away the stressors that impede the body's intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
You know, your body knows how to heal. Your body's naturally healthy and holy and whole. I mean, that's where the word health comes from, is that word hal, which means whole or holy. So your body is naturally whole. Now, like I say, the cells have forgotten their way.
Mm-hmm.
There can be all kinds of impediments to healing, but meditation really does a few things. First, it helps to settle the nervous system to kind of create a new normal, one where you're peaceful, where you're present, where you're connected to yourself, where you start to recognize your inner GPS and heed its wisdom, you know, whether it's just saying no to something or saying yes to something and meaning it, or whether it's telling yourself the truth or moving away or towards something. So it helps you to reconnect, to get rid of all the buzz and reconnect to what's really real. It also helps to enliven your immune system. And not in a way that you have autoimmune disorder, but it helps to enhance the immune system's intelligence so it can work for you. Also, it helps you to connect to, well, a couple different things, but it helps you to really connect to who you really are outside of the diagnosis, outside of the roles and responsibilities that so many of us identify with. I noticed when I used to talk to people on the phone about coming to the center, you know, I said, well, who are you? And they would say, well, I'm a mother, I'm a wife, I'm a sister, I'm a daughter, or I'm a husband, or I'm an executive, or whatever they may be. I said, well, who are you really outside of all that? Outside of having, I'm a cancer patient, outside of that identity, outside of the roles and responsibilities and the relationships, you know, who are you really? And that question is so important for each one of us to answer. And oftentimes this is why we get sick.
Right.
So we can say, you know, I am much more than this person who goes to work every day in this relationship I'm having with this kind of car and this kind of body and this kind of life. You know, instead I am this consciousness, I am an expression of this field of love that is living through me as me, and is living through you as you. And so to really not just think it or imagine it, but to really know it, that's where meditation comes in. It helps you to yoke your attention to its source. And so when I say, who's looking through your eyes, you know, it's not just you, but what is it that's looking through your eyes? What is it that's animating your body? So meditation really helps you to connect to that, I'd have to say, infinite and eternal aspect of yourself. And so, yes, it helps physically. It helps to let your body relax and move the brainwaves from the beta, fearful, depressed state into the alpha state, which has been proven to enhance your immunity. But then also to create this new normal of yoking to that stable, part of yourself. I call it being soul-centered,
Mm.
where it doesn't matter what other people's opinions of you are. It doesn't matter all of the externals that change, like weather, who are you really? Who's that one? And so that's why I meditate. And there's so many ways to meditate, but you really want the meditations to connect you to the deepest part of you.
Yeah.
Obviously, gratitude meditations are great for you. Obviously, visualizations are helpful,
Mm-hmm.
but there are meditations that allow for transcendence, transcending those roles, the external noise, to reach that deepest part of you. Now, it also helps you to transcend your fears, your diagnoses, your numbers, your letters. So if you get a blood count that doesn't serve you, or you feel fearful about, just recognize, that's not you. That's just a number. Just like your job isn't you, it's just what you do. And so it's just really important to connect to that deepest part. And then another aspect of meditation, which really is cultivated through mindfulness meditations, is the ability to be really present. I don't know about you, but that drama we were talking about with the diagnosis, it's all this forward thinking, like, oh my God, now what am I going to do? What am I going to tell people? How am I going to handle this?
Mm-hmm.
What's going to happen next? I've got this. It's just, you get on this train where you're focused on the destination, yet you're missing the journey of the people that are in your life right now that you can love and you can connect with, the people who support you, and being really present to who you are. So there are all kinds of meditations, and the meditation I was talking about, the type that helps you to transcend form and phenomenon and the transitory, to help you to come back to who you really are, those meditations tend to be less doing and more being, like mantra practices or breath awareness, helping you to transcend the world of worries and to-do lists and identities, and helping you to connect to the deepest part of yourself. But there are other meditations, like I say, visualizations, gratitude meditations, which can really help to enliven sort of a grateful heart, which is so good for your immune system. But the other meditations of mindfulness meditations, the go-to mindfulness would be breath awareness or body awareness. What's important about mindfulness meditation is it helps you to establish present moment awareness. And what's important about that is we talked about the drama that can happen with the diagnosis, yours or someone else's. The drama starts to ensue because we have to make a plan, don't we?
Yeah.
We have to make a plan of treatment, surgery, whatever it may be. And so it can shift our attention into the future.
Yeah.
Which can be scary. That's where fear and anxiety can really live. And so our job as people trying to navigate a meaningful life is to be right here, right now. Because the best part of life is in the present moment. It may not be this particular present moment, but in order to engage in relationships that are meaningful, in work that's meaningful, in projects that are important, in your relationship with God or someone else or yourself, the most important moment is always going to be in the present. So staying alert to the signs and wonders, to your emotions as they arise, so you don't blow yourself off again. Everything that's really important in life is in the present moment, whether it's this one or another one. It's always about being right here, yoking your attention to this moment, and yoking your attention to that which is looking through your eyes. And yes, you have to make plans.
Yeah.
But you don't have to live in the future, because you'll miss this moment. You'll miss whatever makes life worth living. What is it that is the most important thing to you? It could be your relationships, your work. You might not feel done yet. You might feel you want to have a closer relationship to God. You might feel like you want to change the world and you're not finished. But in order to be able to kind of do all that, being very present to what's here right now is important. And some people just do everything they can not to be.
Yeah. Especially when you're going through something that is very uncertain. It leads to, cancer leads to a lot of uncertainty. And as you said, that's a very scary place to be. But I feel like for me, when you're talking about meditation and it sort of yoking you to your true self. I feel like I started meditating to deal with, stress and anxiety, those sort of, surface visceral things. But what I didn't not expect at all was for it to open this door to spirituality that I had never really experienced before. And I can't even really say with certainty how it happened. It was just a gradual, like connecting to this inner source or essence or whatever, that it's, undeniable that it's connected to something bigger than us. And I think that helps a lot with the fear and uncertainty and anxiety, to sort of trust that we are connected to something that's, bigger than us, that we can't see.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I think it's sort of a stealth plan by the divine to give you something that's going to wake you up to what's something is much more important, perhaps, is your relationship to the world around you, to people around you, to yourself, to that animating force, whether you call it God or source, to wake you up. And sometimes I think we get this life lesson. I worked with Gary Zukav. It wasn't in my bio there, but I worked with him for a couple of years, and he used to call this Earth School. This is Earth School, and Earth School is going to give you the lessons you need to help you navigate and make you more skillful as a person and living, because you can be pretty checked out. Instagram can be pretty addictive, and the web can be addictive, and television and addictive behaviors, so I think what happens is we got to almost relearn how to feel our feelings, how to express what's true for us, how to connect eye to eye, how to have relationships in 3D instead of 2D, and also to create a practice community. That might sound crazy, you might not know what I'm talking about, but initially I got involved with a cancer support group, and then I had a practice community around me. And so a practice community is really essential. May not be the same people that you live with or work with or are friends with, but where you can meditate together. You're all kind of looking at life in the same direction. You don't even have to talk to each other, but a community of people that will hold this space for you to have a practice that yokes your attention to that eternal aspect of yourself.
Lovely.
It's really important.
So on that note, for someone who hasn't meditated before, how can they start to incorporate that into their life? Because I feel like some people are kind of intimidated by meditation, or they don't really understand what it's about. So yeah, how can people who have never done it before start dipping their toes in?
Well, I say Insight Timer is great. They have a lot of great meditations on that. It's an app you can get on your phone. Even though I like everybody to go analog, sometimes you need some digital assistance initially. But, meditation is very simple. It's just not necessarily easy. In terms of meditation, all you need are 3 ingredients. The first is your willingness to sit down and do it. Often that willingness is accompanied by an intention. For those of you who know about Yoga Nidra, an intention is simply like a sankalpa, like I'm meditating to find out who I am, or I'm meditating to activate my healing response, or I'm meditating to feel closer to God. Whatever your intention is, it informs your meditation. The second ingredient is your gentle attention. I used to think you needed some sort of Jedi powers in order to meditate. A meditation will give you those, but initially you don't need to. You can just be as who you are, as distracted as you arrive. It's fine. We're going to train the brain. That's what meditation does. Trains the brain to be more focused, so you can monotask, so you can be present, and so you can become a little more self-aware instead of just externally focused. So the first ingredient is your willingness and intention. The second ingredient is your gentle, bare, non-judgmental attention. And the third ingredient is what sort of helps people to navigate the world of meditation. Some people, the third ingredient is the focus. So you might focus on your breath or your body or an emotion. That would be the sensation-based meditations or walking. Some people focus on sound-based focuses, such as contemplative prayer, mantras, listening to sounds, praying out loud, or thinking sounds, like in mantras. Now, then the third focus can be visual, visualizing the war or the love, the light, the lightness, visualizing yourself well. Visualizing tends to activate the mind a lot, and I like meditations that settle the nervous system, although they're all helpful. So recognizing there are many ways to meditate. There are lots of brand names out there, so one brand is not better than another brand. If you strip it all down and deconstruct meditation, you'll see it's really simple. Now, there are 5 essentials to meditation. Actually, the free gift I'm offering goes into them. Because I lived in a Zen Buddhist monastery for a couple of years, and I really needed to have these essentials, and I didn't have them. And so I write them down, I teach them, I talk about them all the time, but they really will help you navigate your interior, because obviously when you sit down to meditate, you've got all the best intentions. The first thing that happens is you get distracted, right? Your phone dings, your dogs bark, someone walks in the room, you have a thought, oh my God, I forgot to call this person back. And so you're going to have all kinds of physical and mental distractions. So it's important to know that if you get distracted, it's perfectly fine. Your job, however, is when you notice you're distracted, is to gently go back to the focus of your attention. To sit around and think about nothing is an advanced technique. So I don't recommend that for a beginner. Instead, I suggest you focus on something, whether it's the way your body feels sitting in the chair, or your breath, and we can do that right now. If you like, you can close your eyes for a moment and put your attention on the simple act of breathing. There's no need to change your breath, although it may change just because you're paying attention to it. Let your breath be natural. And notice the gentle inflow and outflow of the breath. And when you notice your attention drifting away, just come on back to the breath, which is always right here, right now. One of my other essentials is to be kind to yourself. Treat yourself as you would a good friend. Have that sweet and genuine regard for yourself as you notice your breath. Another essential is it's important not to try to have a certain experience. Have the one you're having. Noticing the breath, the cool air on the inhale, the warmed breath as you exhale. You can soften your face, your shoulders, and your belly. Come on back to your breath. Don't try to have a certain experience, and let go of any expectations that you're suddenly going to be healed or you're going to see angels. Just have the experience you're having right now. You're doing it correctly. And the last essential is to stick with the practice. But for now, you can begin to open your eyes. It's always important to come out of meditation slowly. You can do so first with a downward gaze. Even if you've only meditated for a moment or two, you can do that. And then when you're ready to open your eyes all the way and engage with the rest of us, you can open them all the way, but there's no rush. You know, you go into a deep experience of meditation, and sometimes you don't even know how deep you are until you come out, or until somebody walks in the room, or the phone rings, or anything like that. But that last essential, to stick with it, is really important, because quite often people sit down to meditate and they say, oh, I'm just going to meditate as long as it feels good. The discipline is really important in terms of saying, you know, I'll meditate for 10 minutes. I have 10 minutes before I have to go to do this next thing. So that's a great practice, is just to stick with it, even when the mind protests, even when you think, oh my God, I've got something to do. Because that part of the brain, the amygdala, is the part of the brain that's got that fight or flight response, which we're going to dampen down by saying, thank you for sharing, but I'm not getting up yet because my 10 minutes isn't up. My 15 minutes isn't up. That's going to change the way you operate through the rest of the day. The reasons to meditate is to have a different, a new normal.
Yeah. On that note of, you know, time, you know, some people have a lot of time in their day, some people don't have very much. And one of my community members was wondering, you know, how much meditation do we need to do to impact our lives and our health? And is it really the meditation itself, or the lasting impact of, you know, the peace that we feel, or the calm during the meditation that really heals?
Well, it's a great question. It's one that's being studied all the time. There is a myriad of research studies out there. They're looking at various practices, whether it's MBSR, mindfulness-based stress reduction, which includes breath awareness, body awareness, walking meditation, eating meditation. There's also TM, transcendental meditation, which is a silent mantra practice. There's Vipassana, which is more of a mindfulness practice where you're paying attention to your breath and body sensations. So they're all being studied, and it's really exponential in terms of the studies out there. But what I noticed initially when I was writing my first book, Soul Centered, I was writing a 12-week program. And right as I was writing this book, this research study came out of Harvard, which was with Sarah Lazar. She was measuring the changes in the brain that were lasting based on the changes in the brain that were based on the state of meditation. So there are two parts. There's the state of meditation, how your body's responding to that relaxation and that calmness. And then there's the traits of meditation, where the brain changes based on that regular activity, just like, you know, changing your muscular situation based on going to the gym. So what Sarah Lazar found was it was 8 weeks of meditation. I think it was 12 minutes or 18 minutes a day for 8 weeks. But I have since seen meditations that say you don't have to meditate that long or for that often. I've seen it like 3 times a week for 10 minutes. I would say go for it. I mean, if this is a life or death situation and someone said to you, here's a pill, this is going to change your life. It's going to make you more aware, more healthier. It's going to make you have better relationships. It's going to reduce your aging. It's going to make you more creative. It's going to make you more intuitive. It's going to make you more connected to God. And here's this pill, and you have to take it, but you can't move for 20 minutes. You have to sit relatively still with your eyes closed. And my suggestion is you pay attention to your breath or do a body scan. People would do it. People would take that pill, and they would sit because of the promises of the benefits. And so that's what meditation really is taking that pill where you sit through the boredom, you sit through the anxiety, you sit through the frustration, you sit through what doesn't seem like nothing's happening, and ultimately something is happening. Ultimately, it really is proven now. I used to say take my word for it, because there weren't any real studies. But now there's studies after study after study, and you can look at the way in which meditation affects your immunity, affects your brain, affects your memory, affects your DHEA levels. You can find a study that's appropriate for you. You can just start Googling it. And but it only works if you do it. Not if you've done it once, or not if you think about doing it. But it only works if you actually do it, like going to a gym.
Yeah.
Only works if you go. Not if you have a membership.
Yeah. So it's sort of the regularity of it that has the impact. Yeah. Okay. All right.
And I would say you could start with as little as 10 minutes, but stick with the whole 10 minutes.
Cool. All right. Yeah.
And
I feel, you know, that I completely agree with that. I notice if I miss a couple days in a row, like I really feel, you know, anxiety creeping in and stress creeping in, and my mind, you know, bouncing forwards to all the different, you know, possible outcomes of whatever it is that I'm working on. And it only takes a few days of being back into it and doing it regularly for those things to settle down. So yeah, regularity and like you said, sticking with it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, there was a really lovely blog entry of yours, and you touched on it a little bit when you were talking about like loving your cancer versus fighting it. And in there, you talk about how you're no longer afraid of cancer or disease, your own or anybody else's. And I'm sure learning to love your cancer played a role in that, getting to that place. But could you talk a little bit about how you got to that place of no longer of fearing it and loving it instead?
Well, I really think it comes from your ability to really focus on, let me see how I say it, to be ridiculously in charge of your attention. So when the mind does what it does and starts to ruminate or starts to project anxiety into the future, fear, like, oh my God, I'm never going to get through this and I'm going to get cancer again, you are the only one that can decide how and what you're paying attention to. So you have to be aware of your awareness. You have to be aware of what's taking up that space, that headspace, right? So when you notice, and sometimes it's emotions that will be the clue, like you're feeling sick or you're feeling scared, your stomach is in a knot and you're feeling that anxiety, you might notice, oh, wait a minute, I'm projecting my whole bandwidth into the future here. You are the only one in charge of your attention. I mean, everybody wants your attention, everybody needs your attention, but you get to pull it back to you and say, you know what, I'm right here right now. Everything's okay right this minute. Even if you're in the midst of chemo, even if you're in the midst of radiation, you're in the radiation machine. Even if you're, you know, you don't have great numbers, you're still okay. There's a part of you that's untouched by that. And so to continually yoke your attention back to this moment, to being okay, even in the scariest moments. Now, we all get dragged away from the drama on television and our world and our own drama with our own physical issue. But just being ridiculously in charge of your attention, recognizing the effect of what you're paying attention to has on your body and your emotions, and then coming back here. So I feel like that is how you can learn to love your cancer, is by being right here. That's where love is anyway. Love is right now. It's right here. It's right now. It's who you are. It's who everyone is, even if it's masked in some crazy way. But love lives through you as you. And the only way you know that is by being right here, right now, and loving yourself while you're going through it. So I feel like cancer wakes us up to that love.
Yeah.
It wakes us up to it. It can wake us up to our habits of mind too, where, you know, some people are just never getting over some grief experience, whether it has to do with losing a loved one or getting a divorce or something like that. Some people are stuck in the past. Others of us are always living in the future. And this is about getting to know you. What is your affinity? You know, can you take the majority of your attention and bring it to this moment rather than the future or the past? Now, there's nothing wrong with the future or the past. We all want to reminisce and enjoy our memories and learn from our lessons, and there's nothing wrong with planning. You had to plan to be here, but living here, this is it, this moment. And so living here, this is where love is experienced, this is where miracles are experienced, this is when your life is experienced. And so really loving that about yourself and loving this moment as much as you can.
Yeah.
You know, as much as you can.
Yeah. And I think it was hard for me to see at the beginning, you know, the positive ways that this experience was going to impact my life. You know, it just seems like the worst thing that could ever happen to you at the time. Yeah. But slowly I chose to focus my awareness on the positive things that I was gaining from the experience, the lessons I was learning, the forgiveness I was given, the forgiveness I was able to give, the ways I was able to grow. And yeah, I think it really does come down to choice. We have a choice to say, I'm going to focus on all of the worst possible things that could possibly happen from this situation, or I can focus on the love and the positivity that, you know, is being brought into my life despite what I'm going through. Yeah, that's lovely.
Yeah. Your body is in real time, and it's always responding to real and imagined ideas and situations. And this is important to note, that your amygdala, that part of the body that is triggering that ocean of hormones to save your life in the fight or flight response, that amygdala is constantly scanning and does not know the difference between real or imagined trauma. So this is important to know. So if you are constantly imagining or reliving a trauma that happened in your past, or if you're one of those people that really likes to watch horror movies, or if you're imagining some figment of your imagination about your traumatic future, the body's going to respond to it. Now, here's what happens though. It responds like it's a real deal. It's not intelligent enough to know the difference. The neocortex is, that's the executive function, but the amygdala isn't. So before you know it, your body's changing its sugar balance in the blood. You're producing more glucagon and less whatever you get with diabetes whatever that is, insulin, less insulin, more glucagon. Your platelets are thickening up because the body's preparing itself for injury. So you've got these thick platelets that are floating around your body. Your immune system's changing its focus from fighting cancer to fighting whatever could be in the environment that you have to ward off, some problem right in the environment. And your senses get sharp, your blood circulation changes, so the blood moves out of your digestive tract and out of your sex organs into your heart and lungs. Your blood pressure goes up to shoot the blood into your arms and legs, and you start to change your breathing habits so that you're breathing more shallow and more rapidly. Now that's just what happens in your body. The brain changes too. The chemistry all changes just because you're imagining a horrible ending.
Wow.
So really, you are in charge of your attention. You have to be the one who says, hey, I'm not doing that again today. I'm not doing that to myself today. You know, I understand the fear. The fear is there. But you are the only one that can control how you pay attention. And that's my second book, The Power of Attention. Noticing how and what you pay attention to.
Lovely. So finally, before we go, do you have a I don't know if you have a number one tip or a couple important tips for how to support mental, emotional, spiritual health when we're in a tumultuous time?
Well, when we're stressed out, because this is a stressful time, you know, we can tend to change the way we view the world. Einstein would say, the most important question facing humanity is this world a friendly place? And when we're suffering from cancer, and I do call it suffering because we don't want it to be that way, and here it is, we can tend to see the world as an unfriendly place. You know, we can see how we can move from a neutral position to a victimized position. And we have to do everything we can to move away from being a victim. Yeah, we're a victim of circumstances, but there's a way in which we live when we're not victimized, where we are focused on, we're looking for beauty. We're focusing on love. We're noticing what we're appreciating. We appreciate our own lives and our own efforts to be well. We appreciate other people and their efforts to support us. So you'll notice it, because I notice when I'm stressed out, I can become a victim. And so with regular meditation, it can really thwart that victimization and move us to being a victor, being a hero or heroine in our own lives, even if we're not healed. Yeah. You know, it's always looming. I mean, you gave me an amazing statistic today about how many people are going to be faced with cancer. Look at, we all we all are going to face our mortality at some stage. Just turns out that people with cancer, we just face it a little earlier.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's a wonderful note to end on. Thank you so much for talking to me today. I found it extremely fascinating and I think very helpful too.
Oh, good. I'm glad. Thanks for asking me to be here and to share. And I invite anyone who wants to listen to my meditations. They're on my website, McLeanmeditation.com. And I just am opening a new meditation center here in Santa Barbara, where I just moved because I had to follow my inner GPS, which says the desert. Even though I love Sedona, Arizona, where I've lived for 17 years, I decided I needed a little more moisture. So here we are, and I am opening a new center. There's World Peace Day on September 21st every year. So if you want to meditate, that's a great day to find a meditation event near you, to find a teacher near you. We have over 350 teachers that can teach you how to meditate on our website. And like I say, Insight Timer is great. Find a meditation that you love and do it.
And do it. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much again. And thank you everybody
Thank you so much.
for watching. Yeah, thank you so much.